Good morning, folks. Test 1, 2. 1, 2. Oh, what is this we have here? Ooh, what is that? Good morning, folks. Looks like we have, 23 people on. Look at this big bad boy. This is called the Blue Rhino. That's his nickname. Hey, good morning, folks. If you're joining me live, 31 people on this morning. This is incredible. My gosh. I know I'm like 2 minutes late, so forgive me for that. So 31 folks on jumping live. If you have good video and sound, looks like Steve Miller says, yes, we have good video and sound. We're going to get into it. I'm sorry I was running just a tad bit late. I clicked the go live button late because I was trying to find some additional dummy rounds for my big Blue Rhino. Like I said, this is called Blue Rhino. This is a Wilson Combat customized shotgun. This bad boy I've had for a long time, and I actually haven't shot this a lot. This is one of my favorite shotguns. I had them do this a long time ago for a class I was doing, and I told them they can paint it any color they wanted to, and this is what they came up with. So pretty darn cool. We'll talk about that here in a second. I also have one of my old war horses, my Benelli M4 shotgun set up. And today's subject, if you haven't seen it on the live stream event notification, is, combat shotgun. It's something we don't talk about a lot. It's something I don't do live streams a lot. But we're going to be talking about shotguns today. I'll talk about pump shotguns. We'll talk about auto shotguns. I'm going to briefly show you that Benelli. We will talk about the pump and the load sequence, but my goal is to do a shotgun session this week. And then next week, because we're talking about it a little bit, I would love it if you have a pump shotgun that you're going to use for self-defense or a patrol shotgun or whatever else for you to get some dummy rounds. We'll talk about that real briefly. Some sort of magazine carrier that you're going to load the shotgun from. And then next week, we'll talk about a little bit more about the shooting sequence, the shoot it, pump it, load it sequence if you're shooting a pump action shotgun, or the shoot it, load it sequence if you're shooting an auto shotgun. Maybe how you might consider placing some of your shotgun shells, the processes of going through select slugs. So today's going to be a little bit more gear centric. We'll talk about shotgun. We'll do a little Q&A. And then next week we'll do it again. So next week, if you're going to join me live, we'll do another live stream with the shotgun. So before I do anything else, let's do some good mornings. Good morning, folks. We've got, it's not, by the way, it's not Tina, it's Tina. Rhymes with China. Is that Tina? Is that right? Tina, you got to tell me if that's correct. By the way, I think that's the first time I've pronounced your name right because I didn't know what it was pronounced like. Thank you for telling me that. Good morning. David is on. Mike is on. Smith. Mr. Brian Smarter. Don. Nice. Of course, IDPA is in the house. Hey, Wade Peterson. How are you, sir? PJ is on. Doug. Good morning, Doug. Charmaine is on. From A Girl and a Gun, Bastrop, Texas. Good morning. And Tina. Every time I see your name, my brain goes to Tina. So if I screw that up, you just got to say something and I'll correct that. So Tina, Tyna, by the way, it rhymes with China. That's in her email signature, which is actually kind of cool. Hey, Russ is on. Good morning, Russ. Kip, good morning. Cynthia, good morning. Mr. Bob Beal. Chuck is on. Russ. Man, Idaho is in the house as well. Eric Mejia was the first one on. I think probably out in LA, maybe, if that's where you are, Aaron. Brian Snyder. Golly, man, we have a lot of folks on. All right, do me a favor. We're going to do our standard safety briefing. Of course, I'm going to show you these dummy rounds, and I'll show you clear chambers with the shotguns. And but before we do that, as I'm doing the safety briefing, those of you that are old hats and know the deal, please click that share button. We got 64 live viewers on right now. Click the like button. What I found recently is if I have you click the like button, then Facebook says, hey, people like this. And they basically, we show more audience members that someone is going live and doing some safety training with a firearm. Maybe say that when you do your share. Say, hey, firearm safety training instead of combat shotgun, because I think they might turn that off. And then we're going to do this. This bad boy, of course, is unloaded and clear. I'm not sure if you can see, but I've got an unloaded and clear chamber. With a shotgun, I can technically stick my finger. And a lot of times when we demo the unloaded and clear process with a handgun, we're going to stick the finger in the mag well, stick the finger in the chamber, but a lot of times we can't actually get our finger in the chamber. With a shotgun, we can actually get up there, we can test and check our follower, right? So I'm testing, make sure there's nothing inside the tube itself, and then of course there's nothing inside the chamber. Now for me, for demo purposes today, I have some dummy rounds. You can actually see these dummy rounds have been used extensively. There's no primer inside there. So if you look at these different dummy rounds areas, so you can basically tell they're not live. They do have some lead in them, if you can see those suckers. The reason I use these is because they simulate the weight of a normal dummy round. And I used to have a bunch of these, and that is actually one of the reasons I was late this morning, because I was trying to find some additional dummy rounds. I actually have some orange ones that are very visible as well. But we'll make do with this today, and I'll get some more dummy rounds for those of you that are going to join me next week. So that bad boy is unloaded and clear. So let me go ahead and show you the other one. And by the way, if you're doing this with me, I've got to have you do the same thing. Please make sure you are unloaded and clear. I've got a clear chamber there. I've got nothing down there. Let me let that bad boy go home and double check that. And I am clear there. Nothing inside there. Of course, this is my big bad Benelli M4 shotgun. I love this guy. Got kind of a rigged up sling on that I used in a class a long time ago. We'll talk about this as well. And then one shell caddy that is empty as well. So do me a favor, double and triple check your firearms if you're doing this with me. And make sure you're clear and safe if you're handling a shotgun. No live ammunition if you're going to dry fire with your shotgun. Of course, keep in mind that a shotgun, we're talking about a safe backstop with a handgun. That is a completely different thing if you're dry firing with a shotgun and you accidentally grab a 1 ounce slug. That slug is going to go through and through and through and through houses. So you got to make sure you have a complete and safe backstop in itself. Okay. See who else is on this morning. Man, Joey Russo's on. Incredible. Hey, Joey. I'm glad to hear that. 19 days post-op in the hospital, man. Send me a message. Let me know how that's going and some of the details if you'd like to. Prayers for you. I hope you're doing good. James Trombley is on, man. We got 84 live viewers on. If you click the share button, we're going to hit 100 today, which is kind of cool. I don't know if it's the subject. Maybe people are like hungry for the shotgun stuff, or everybody's back from the holidays. I don't know. Kip from Fort Pierce, Florida. Good morning. How are you? Tony is on. Ratliff. Good morning, sir. How are you? And Pat from Wisconsin. Hey, how are you? Rob Guy. Good morning as well. So outstanding. Okay, so we're gonna talk real briefly about shotgun. And when we talk about shotgun, what I really want to talk to you initially about is setup, right? I want to talk to you about the setup of the shotgun, some things that I prefer on a shotgun. I actually may grab another shotgun out of the safe here in a second. One of my original shotguns, which was basically a Mossberg variation, a Mossberg 500 variation. Many years ago, my buddy, my partner in crime, Mr. Rich Brown, and I decided we wanted to do a bunch of shotgunning. So we both went to Walmart. They were having a sale on shotguns. I don't remember if it was a Thanksgiving sale or a Christmas sale or whatever reason, but they had Mossberg 500s on sale, and they had two shotguns. They had one with basically like a polymer plastic black foregrip and stock, and they had one with the wooden pump and stock itself. Two identical guns, but basically one had a little bit more of a tactical look. It's probably a tactical designation, the one with the wood stock. For whatever reason, we flipped coins. I kind of wanted the tactical looking one, but I ended up with the wooden stock pump. And then we bought a bunch of shells, and we went to town. And one of the reasons we were doing shotgun stuff is because back in those days, to breach a door handle or breach hinges on a door, you had to have a shotgun. They had shotgun breaching rounds, and you could breach a door with a shotgun. It was just a good overall all-around self-defense tool. I think Rich had an AR back then. I didn't own an AR for myself. I just got out of the Marine Corps. And a shotgun, it was $170 maybe. And it was a very, very effective home defense kind of tool. I also knew that I'd be carrying a shotgun as a police officer, so I wanted to get some experience with the shotgun, and basically ran that shotgun for many years and learned a lot about it. Learned the shoot it, pump it, load it sequence, which I'll talk briefly about today. Now, this is a pump action shotgun. So the first question is, in terms of grabbing a shotgun, should we select a pump action shotgun, or should we select an auto shotgun, right? This is the Benelli M4. This is a semi-automatic shotgun. This is actually the shotgun I believe the Marine Corps is still using in terms of their combat shotgun. I'm not positive about that. And this is very similar to my Benelli M2, which I have in the safe right now, which is my 3-gun shotgun back in the day when I did a little bit of shotgunning, right? So, the question is, should we select the auto or should we select the pump? And the reality is, it really depends. We talked about, selecting a home defense type handgun. Everybody's like, well, Mike, what is the best home defense handgun? Is it, Glock? Is it a 1911? Is it an M&P variant or whatever else? And the reality is, you have to ask yourself what your purpose is, right? So what is your purpose? If your purpose is some simple self-defense, some home defense, where, probably not going to be getting into a cave in Afghanistan and fighting 8 terrorists, well, then probably a pump action shotgun is going to be fine. The advantage of the pump action shotgun is it's a very, very reliable weapon, right? So with a semi-automatic shotgun, clearing malfunctions becomes somewhat of a challenge. Where if I have an issue with a pump shotgun, right, and I go to fire that shot, mount that shotgun, fire that shot, get a click instead of a bang, oftentimes the solution is simply another pump of that shotgun, right? Whereas semi-automatic, certainly I can clear the chamber using the bolt or doing different things, but oftentimes we'll find that the shells from the loading gate itself and the tube will get a little bit more messed up, and it's a little bit more challenging. So for those of you that want simple, I certainly recommend looking at a good pump shotgun. Now, in terms of this pump shotgun, from the back to the front, and then we'll do some open Q&A, and then we'll talk a little bit about maybe your stance position, stuff like that, and if it varies from a rifle. This particular shotgun, the way Wilson Combat set it up was with a rear end that simulates my AR system, right? So I have the exact same collapsible stock, the exact same pistol grip that I do on my AR system, which means that I have basically a familiarity. Man, my brain is not working very, very fast today. In terms of how I grab the shotgun, maybe if I need to manipulate it under my shoulder, it feels exactly like my AR system would. Now, granted, it's a little bit heavier in the front end, but it feels the same, and I have the same basically manual arms or manipulation with the pistol grip. I can also take the stock like I can with my AR. I can unlock it and I can adjust for length. So for those of you that need to adjust length in terms of your shotgun stock, maybe you're wearing a body armor, a vest or plate carrier or whatever else, maybe you're of a certain build where you can't have the shotgun stock extended, then you could adjust that stock. Now, as you probably remember, my recommendation for your stock length for an AR system, or in this case, this shotgun, is as extended as possible, because I want the gun as far away from my body as possible, because my arms are stronger out here than they are back here. So I have my stock fully extended, okay? By the way, I am so happy this morning. We have 105 people on this live stream. That is incredible. Hey, good morning, Sarah. I see you jumping on. Tiny Tony, Joey talking. Oh, yeah. Joey says, cycling the pump action shotgun, the sound of compliance. You are exactly right. Brian Schuler says, 1975 Remington 873 baffles and a box of Cholies has served you well. I love that. Jim, as far as shotgun training to California, I don't have anything scheduled in California right now, specifically shotgun training. Actually, California, the Sac Valley area, sponsored by, I believe back in the day, Wes Lagomarsino, was one of the only shotgun classes I've taught on a regular basis. Because full disclosure, although I've shot and ran a shotgun quite a bit in my many years, I used to have a patrol shotgun in my patrol car when I was a police officer. I didn't have a patrol rifle. I don't teach a lot of shotgun stuff, and I don't do a lot of 3-gun anymore, simply because I focus primarily on the handgun and the AR system. But I do really enjoy shooting shotguns. I think there's a lot to learn from them. And once again, the main reason for this particular live stream is I know that there are a bunch of you out there that have a pump action type shotgun. Okay. So let's get into, hey, Kelly Keltner, just want to say hi to you this morning. Nobody else on. Okay, folks, if you're joining me, by the way, for those that are new to the live stream, if you haven't clicked the share button, do me a favor, click the share. Just take 1 second, click share. Somebody post it up into my groups and post it to your wall. Send a couple text messages and let folks know. Okay. And Jen, you're right. Pump versus semi and the pistol grip. So while you're clicking that share button, just kind of a discussion on what I want to talk about next. I'm going to go from the back of this shotgun to the front of the shotgun. and I'll talk about what is on it and why I have certain things on it. And by the way, there are different, certainly different opinions in terms of how to load a shotgun or where to put your load out. I'll tell you why I have mine a certain way, and then we'll play more with this next week. So this will be a continuation. So for those of you that are watching this going, man, I really wish I had my shotgun there. I want to get some dummy rounds. I want to try to set it up like Mike has to set up. I want to play with that load process. We will repeat. We'll do shotgun number 2 next week on Wednesday. I got to double check my schedule, but it should be live next week. So mark that on your calendar. Matter of fact, if you have a chance right now, put it on your calendar and say, hey, live stream. Mark on your phones, your calendars, every Wednesday at 7:30 a.m. And then if you have some friends, send that to them as well, because typically I am live every single Wednesday, unless I'm traveling at 7:30 a.m. Those subjects are going to get unique. Like I said, we haven't done shotgun for a long time. Okay. All right, here we go. So from the back to the front, we talked about the stock. We talked about why I like the collapsible stock and the pistol grip, and it's simply because it mimics my AR system. So when I grab the shotgun, I can grab the shotgun. It feels the same in my hand. I tend to find I have a little bit more control over the shotgun. When I'm loading it, I can control it just a little bit better. It has a little bit more, it offers the ability to control a heavier gun, because the shotgun has a lot more weight in the front end of the gun, right? All of the shotgun shells of the tube are very, very heavy. And in my case, I have a Surefire weapon mounted light pump on it. So this adds some weight as well. So this pistol grip allows me to control the shotgun a little bit better with that stock under shoulder position. For those of you that have my defensive rifle book or American Warrior Study coin members, you know with the rifle book, we talk a lot about manipulating the rifle up on your shoulder or manipulating the rifle under your armpit. And for most of you, you're probably going to have more success manipulating the rifle or the shotgun under your shoulder or under your armpit, simply because it allows me to leverage and control the weight of the gun, right, with my armpit itself. If I try to manipulate the gun up here, it's actually very hard for me to hold the gun up, and I'm a pretty strong guy. So there's a consideration for you as well. So that's why on the pistol grip and the collapsible stock. Okay. Now, moving forward, a couple things. This is pretty much a standard shotgun, so it has a safety on the trigger guard area. My Mossberg actually has a safety up on the back of the receiver, right? So my safe deactivation position, if you will, where, for example, with an AR system, I would be riding the safety with my thumb. With my Mossberg, I would have, of course, it's not a pistol grip, but I can get it here in a second. I would have my thumb on top of the safety. And in this particular shotgun, I'm going to be riding the safety by putting my finger typically on top of that safety button. So, of course, this is on safe, off safe, on safe, off safe. Now, in this case, this has a pretty big and robust button to take the safety off, which I like. This is not necessarily a bad thing either, this position. But if I'm grabbing a shotgun because I need to defend myself with a shotgun, and I'm in my yard, I'm going to be in a position, right, where the shotgun is probably mounted up on my shoulder, and I'm going to be riding that safety. So I can very quickly push the button and engage, right? I don't have to go, okay, if I need to engage, I need to reach back and find the button. I don't want to mess with that, right? So I'm probably going to ride the safety itself, so I can push the button, right, fire the shot, and pump the shotgun if I need to. Then I can always go back to safe. And if when you see me manipulating this, you'll see me come off the shoulder and do stuff like that. That's because my thumb can't reach the safety on the other side. Okay, so that's the safety, and the trigger is pretty much standard. Now, if I flip the gun over, and folks, bear with me. I know I'm talking kind of fast because I'm a little limited on time this morning, and I want to get this out. So I will do an open Q&A. You can ask all you want about this shotgun. I'll show you the auto hit in a second. On the other side of the gun, I have a shell carrier, right? And in my case, with the shell carrier, I'm going to have a series of shells that are down and a series of shells that are up. I will have at least one up, maybe two up. If I were to want to have the shotgun set up where I needed to do a select slug drill, right? And basically, for those that don't understand that term, that means that if I needed to select slug, right? We call it, back in the day, or at least in the circles that I ran in, we called it a select slug drill. And that basically meant that maybe my combat shotgun is loaded with buckshot or number 4 or number 2 shot. We could talk about the shotgun patterning and pros and cons of those different things. And then I know that buckshot with my choke pattern is effective to, let's say, 40, 50, 60 yards, right? That's the maximum distance that buckshot is effective. And all of a sudden, the threat is behind a tree, armed or whatever else, and he's 75 yards away. But that buckshot is probably not going to be effective at that distance, right? So at that point in time, I may take the shotgun, right? Manipulate the pump to the rear, take that slug that's on the top of my gun, and then drop it in the chamber. And that would be one of my slug rounds. The other reason I have the bullet up is this is also my emergency reload load, right? It's my emergency reload shell. Let me say that a little bit more clearly. So if I'm firing, right? So I fired my shot, boom, not down, boom, not down, boom, not down, boom, not down, boom. And I got that. The next time I fire the gun and I get that click, and I realize, oh man, I am out of ammo. I can pump the shotgun to the rear, grab that emergency shotgun shell, and I can load the shotgun shell into the chamber. So that is how I do an emergency reload with the shotgun, and that is why, in terms of my shell carrier, right, I have that shotgun shell up, and I have some other shotgun shells down. Now, the shotgun shells down would give me the ability, once I fire that shot, for example, boom, pump the shotgun. Okay, now they're down on the ground. I realize they're down. Let's say I fired 3, 4, 5, 6 shots, right? The sequence with the pump shotgun, and we're going to do this a lot more next week. So I'm just introducing this and telling you why I do this. It's going to be shoot it, pump it, load it. Think about that. Shoot it, pump it, load it. So when I fire that shot, I'm always firing that shot, pumping, getting ready to fire the next shot, right? The sequence or follow through on a handgun or rifle is fire a shot, get off the trigger, get back on the trigger, get ready to fire another shot. Well, with the shotgun, if it's not a semi-auto, right, we have to manually work that pump. So when I fire that shot, I'm always riding that recoil and pumping that shotgun. Okay? So I'm always following through by pumping and getting ready to fire again. Press that trigger, fire, get ready to fire again. Now, in this case, maybe they're down, right? The reason the shells are down is I can go to a position of control and I can start to work my way back, and I'm going to grab that next shell and I'm going to load it in the gun, right? So that's the process of firing that shot and loading the next shell in there. So in my shotgun, I would have typically 1 up, 3 or 4 down. I may have 2 up. I may have an emergency load, a slug, and then maybe 4 more buckshot down, depending on how many shells are on your side saddle. Okay, so that's that setup. Okay, man, we have 120 people on. Maybe it's because the shotgun is making me flex my biceps so much, and I'm getting kind of tired. My arms are getting tired. This thing is heavy. I need to do this more often. And hey, so for those of you that have shared, thank you so much for sharing. All right, let me back up a little bit and check this out. Okay, nothing else as far as big questions. Jerry says, I moved away from fixed shell carrier to VCS shell cards. Sure, Jerry, you have to share that with me, and I'm not sure what you mean by VCS shell cards. We'll talk about an additional loading process here in just a little second. Chris says, "Is you sure it's the biceps?" Thank you, Chris. Right. I do agree with that. So Steve talked about when we're talking about, if you're thinking, well, Mike, do I need to put a pistol grip on my shotgun? Understand that this series of shotguns, right, the Remington series of shotguns and several other variations have a safety on the trigger guard, right? My Mossberg has a safety up on the top of the receiver. So if I were running a pistol grip, that naturally puts my thumb down here, right? It would be very difficult with a pistol grip for me to reach up. So I would basically have to hold the shotgun like this. Matter of fact, since we're talking about that, bear with me 1 second. Go into the safe. Let's get old sunshine here. Oh, hello, baby. This was my first combat shotgun. Now, notice it certainly doesn't have some robust peep sights like my other shotgun we'll hear in a second. You know, beautiful shotgun over there. But this is excuse me, this is that bad boy that I bought many years ago at Walmart. And this is actually, this is a Mossberg. I think there's a different variation as far as the model, because I think they designate the one with the stock on it, the wooden stock, different than the tactical looking stock. But he's exactly right in terms of his point. You can see in this case, the safety is up on the upper part of the receiver, right? So my manual of arms would be to ride that safety with my thumb, right? So if I needed to engage, I would click the safety off, right? And I can very easily reach that with my thumb, where, you know, with this pump variety, that safety is on the trigger guard. So that's exactly right, right? By the way, both of these shotguns, uniquely enough, have, like all shooters, have skateboard tape applied to certain portions of the shotgun. I actually have skateboard tape on the pump of this one, as well as the pump of this one, right? And the reason I like the skateboard tape is, try not to drop my shotgun, is it really allows me to manipulate the shotgun very aggressively without any sliding of my hands, right? So maybe it's rainy out there. I want to really work that pump. This skateboard tape allows me to really grip that shotgun, fire that shot very aggressively. So I'm not sliding my hand, where this wood stock is pretty slick. I also have some skateboard tape here, right? Because I can grab that shotgun, I can mount, I can drive it to my shoulder, and it just gives me that additional gripping feel of the pump and the grip itself. Okay, so that's there's your key point there. Moving forward on the shotgun, so we talked about the shell caddy carrier, right, and why I do that. Moving forward, I actually have this is the Surefire Weapon Light pump. And the way this bad boy works is there are a couple different switches on it here, right? There's a permanent on, and there's a temporary on and off, right? So if I want to activate and have a temporary on, and as most of you know, for low light, we covered low light a little bit last week. I think there's utility in having a permanent on switch, and there's utility in having a temporary on switch. So why might I have a permanent on switch? Well, maybe I need to illuminate something. I need to reach down and push a door open or push something out of the way. If I have a permanent on switch, I can take the shotgun off my shoulder, take the hand off of the pump itself, and then do different things. If I need to, maybe grab a kid, get them out of the way, right? Get back up in a position where I'm shooting, right? A temporary on switch allows me to walk into a position, right? Light the light up, maybe wash the light into a room, realize there's a threat, and engage. So it allows me to go to a temporary position to a permanent position. The way this bad boy is set up is so I can very easily, hit that sucker with my thumb. So if I needed to engage, I can engage by pushing that button on and leaving it on. I tell you, with this button in this position, I have found that it in terms of pumping and shooting, I have to really physically push with my thumb, right, to keep that light on. So if I came into a room or a place or an outdoor yard, I may very well, we've talked about the utility of leave it on, light on, leave it on. I may very well just illuminate this bad boy and leave it on, right? And let the light shine, and I can be pumping and shooting and not worrying about that light coming off, right? So it's a possibility. Some of you may have more success reaching around and activating with your finger, but for me, I can't reach the front with my finger here, right? And for me, pumping the shotgun, my thumb position and pressure changes, which is why I like the permanent on switch. I haven't done a lot of low light shooting with the shotgun, but I will tell you that the permanent on switch, in my opinion, is probably the way to go. If you're using this variety of a switch itself. Now, let me contrast this with the Benelli, right? The Benelli over here. This bad boy has basically, I've got a light mounted with kind of a light rail deal that's kind of attached to the tube, right? But I've got the switch back here, right? So with the Benelli, my hand is in one position, right? So when I mount that shotgun, I'd be activating the light very easily, and boom, 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 boom. I don't have to worry about that. So it's got a good thumb activation switch like normal, right? Because I'm going to maintain this position because I'm not having to pump the shotgun itself, okay? Let's see what we have as far as questions here, folks. Oh, Jim asked a question. So this is ambidextrous, Jim. So yes, there's a activation button on this side. There's an activation button on this side, probably for ambi shoulders, ambi shooters, different hands, but also maybe someone that prefers to activate this with the fingers there. So I could use these fingers to activate that light, right? Okay. By the way, and then we'll open up for some Q&A and we'll talk about this real briefly and go from there. The rest of the shotgun is pretty standard. You know, I want to have as long as tube as necessary, or as long as a tube as allowable legally. I want as many shotgun shells on the gun as possible. I don't want to load to a shell caddy or shell carrier. This is what I call a shell caddy. Back in the day when in 3-gunning, folks were doing a 4 or a 6 shotgun shell load with their hand. They were using primarily shell caddies. These days, they're using a different system where you're grabbing 2 and 4 shells, which, to be honest with you, I never did that in 3-gun. I did the 4 or 6 shell load with the shell caddy. I want to show you more about this next week, but I wanted to kind of demonstrate what it looked like. It clips to your belt. But in my opinion, I would like to have as many shells as I can in the tube and as many shells as possible on the gun. If this is just a defensive shotgun, right, home defense type shotgun, and I can't solve the problem with one of the chambers, 6 or so in the tube, and then, you know, another 6 maybe on the side saddle, I've got real big problems. I probably should have selected a high capacity handgun with a weapon mounted light, you know, or an AR system, right, or maybe a 9mm carbine. So that's my thought as far as the tube itself. Now, in terms of choking and patterning a shotgun, you can certainly take the choke out of most of these shotguns and switch out the chokes. And that's going to be completely dependent on the purpose. You know, I look at utilizing some sort of standard patterning choke and or barrel that keeps buckshot relatively tight and allows you to shoot it out to 50 yards or so. Right, that allows me to select a slug and then shoot beyond that relatively accurately. But there's a huge variety in terms of choking a shotgun and patterning a shotgun that, to be honest with you, I think is important to know and important to research and look at. You certainly need to pattern your shotgun, but it's something that I think it's much like, you know, defensive calibers, 9mm versus 45. I think we overthink it a lot in terms of shotgunning, right? Now, this particular gun has a front and rear peep sight, so it's got a very big, robust peep sight. It's got a fiber optic front sight. This is actually not a night sight type sight on the front of the shotgun. For those of you that know, if I need to use a night sight, if this were a night sight variant, for it to be useful, it would have to be dark enough for the night sight to glow. So I'm not terribly worried about it being a night sight versus a fiber optic front sight that I can see very quickly. But notice that these sights, the sighting system, you know, is very tall and it's very robust, so I can see through that ring very quickly and pick up that rear sight if I need to pick up that rear sight. Okay. In terms of shotgun and positioning, we talk a lot about the position of the stock on the shoulder. For those of you that have followed my AR program, you know, we talk about drop, drive, pull, press, and the process is going to be very similar with the shotgun, depending on whether or not you have a pistol grip, right? And that's going to give us the ability to control the shotgun. We'll kind of get into detail on that next week, but I'll talk about that briefly. Let's see what I have as far as question. Jerry, good morning from Chile, Central Florida. Chile and Central Florida. Wow, good morning. Jim, red dot thoughts. Good question. Not opposed to it. I think certainly a red dot on a shotgun is as effective as a red dot on a rifle. Right. The only reason I don't have a red dot on this shotgun, to be very blunt with you, is Wilson Combat didn't build it with the red dot. I actually told them back in the day to build it with a set of iron type sights, a peep sight, because that was what I see more often than not on the shotguns that I see with my students. So I wanted to run a similar or the same sighting system that my students have, and I think it's perfectly fine. Now, to put a red dot on this shotgun, or in this case, the Benelli with the rail, yeah, I think that's a no-brainer. Matter of fact, I may very well put a red dot on this particular shotgun. I may throw a an aim point or something like that up there. And I think it's just going to give me like a red dot does with the rifle. It's going to give me the ability to, see things a little bit better and run the gun a little bit faster than trying to see through a peep front and rear sight, maybe in a little bit lower light conditions. So yes, red dot, absolutely, 100%. Okay. Sandra, is 20 gauge pump appropriate for an older woman? 100% appropriate. 20 gauge versus 12 gauge. I can tell you that those are both highly effective stopping rounds, meaning they're both going to have very, very, very effective stopping power. Many years ago, I taught a class in California and I had a good buddy named Wes. And Wes was building semi-automatic 20 gauge shotguns. And the theory was they're still highly effective in terms of the ballistics. We're talking about a shotgun round, folks. We're talking about almost up to an ounce or almost an ounce of lead hitting someone at velocity. And he was building these 20 gauge semi-autos. They were highly reliable, and the recoil, force or system, recoil itself, what I'm trying to say here, the recoil impulse was much less. So a lot of his smaller and older clients could take that 20 gauge semi-auto and run the heck out of it and not get nearly as beat up as they would with a good 12 gauge, right? Now, you're going to get more felt recoil with a pump shotgun than a semi-auto, because there's no dissipation of the force in terms of the actual gun firing and then things moving. With the pump action, the chamber stays closed until you pump it. So all of that force is going directly to the rear. And remember, in terms of how force comes from recoil, the heavier the object we're throwing forward, the more the force is imparted rearward on our shoulder. So a shotgun is going to kick a little bit more than an AR. So yes, a 20 gauge pump or whatever variety, assuming you have good ammo, buckshot or slugs or whatever else, is highly effective. Not a problem at all. Eric asked if chamber loading over the top versus under the receiver, my preference for all Mercedes. Yes. So Eric, to be honest with you, I found when Eric's question is, my emergency reload process is as follows, right? So maybe I have fired a shot with the pump action shotgun. Give a better camera view for you. So I fired, I mean for it to go bang, it goes click. I'll probably have moved forward a little bit because I'm expecting a recoil. At that point in time, my brain knows the gun is empty. I'm going to pump it, keep it open, and I'm going to go to a control position, and I'm going to come right over the top. Now, back in the day, there's a lot of folks that was shotgun. They would come under, and they would hold the shell like this, and they would come under the gun and in. I have found the over-the-top position to be much more consistent. So I'm taking the gun and either rotating in my shoulder, which is a little bit harder to control because it's very heavy, right? It's a little faster this way, but it's a little harder to control. Or I take the gun, as I move the pump to the rear, I go to my control position, rotate the gun over the top, or the shell over the top, and then back into the chamber, and then I'm able to fire again. So for me, Eric, yes, I am a fan of the over-the-top position. It's a little bit more consistent for me than under the gun itself. That's my recommendation. Play with that. And there are some guys and gals that can go under the gun just as fast. I just find that over the top is a little bit more consistent. I think under the gun, maybe if you have it done set up right, because you're always reaching low, maybe might have more speed potential. Over the top of the gun for me is more consistent. And if I need to do an emergency reload with the shotgun, it is empty. Over the top and consistency is my choice. And when I time it, the speed is about equal. But full disclosure, I haven't put that on a timer for a long time. Actually, getting these out of the safe has kind of got me excited about shotgun. I think I'm actually going to run the shotgun a little bit this winter and maybe do some dry fire manipulations. And like I said, it's kind of working my arm here, so I'm going to get some bicep work out of this, right? So, yes, Eric, that's my preference there. Scott says 510C on your Benelli. Oh, I have an extra 510C. Maybe I'll put that on mine. Bayer gun set for boomstick courses. PJ says CougarMountSolutions.com. Okay, we'll check them out. Don't know. I don't know Eric, but there are a few good shotgunners out there. They're pretty rare these days, actually, right? Mossberg. Buckshot. Yeah, Don talks about the 20 gauge. 20 gauge shotguns are absolutely fine. I think a 20 gauge shotgun, whether it's a semi-automatic or pump, it might be a very, very viable self-defense tool versus the good old 12 gauge, specifically for those of you that are a little bit lighter, a little bit more frail. You just don't have the body mass that Mike Seeklander does to control, the 12 gauge. You're going to have really effective stopping power with a 20 gauge. Just make sure you test your ammo. Test your ammo. By the way, before I forget to say that, if you're running buckshot in a shotgun or whatever else, or run a number 4 shot, number 2 shot, pattern the ammo. Shoot it at 5, 10, 15, 20, 40 yards. Pattern the ammo. See what it actually does. Don't make an assumption. Number 1. Number 2, if you're running a little higher number load, thinking that the pellets are going to spread out and not penetrate through multiple walls in your house or your apartment or whatever else, be wary of that. I've tested a lot of shotgun shells in those manners, and I will tell you that if the pellets themselves have not had time to open up, a number 4, number 6 shot will penetrate almost as many walls initially as a slug or buckshot. It will absolutely go right through the wall. So don't make the assumption in this room or a comparable room distance that you're going to put more birdshot in the shotgun, and if you miss the thread, it's going to hit the wall and stop. It will not if it's a short distance room like this. Most rooms are too short in distance for that shot to open up enough where it stops traveling through the walls. Now, once it goes through the first wall, granted, yes, it opens up and it will stop, but I've tested that a little bit, and that didn't necessarily pan out. Matter of fact, we tested that with a 12 gauge and 20 gauge. The 20 gauge, I think it was number 6 shot, was the one that finally opened up after making the initial contact with the sheetrock to open up and not penetrate the next wall through. So just be aware of that. You're going to want to shoot that. But no matter what, if you're shooting a shotgun, you can expect it to penetrate. And I'm not saying a handgun won't or a rifle won't, but you can, because it's all about mass. You're throwing a lot of mass downrange. So just be aware of this. Okay. Kelly, you're exactly right. It was Wes with the 20 gauge. So Ron Harris, on the slug load you should, how do you feed manually without a round coming from the tube? Okay, so your question is, how do you feed, how do you do a select slug drill without one coming from the tube, right? So when we're talking about a select slug drill, right, let's talk about the circumstance. And this is, by the way, I think there's a manual of arms of the shotgun that becomes very complex, right? And it is dependent on the shotgun itself. If I take the Benelli M4, for example, and I haven't done this for a long time, and I've got one in the chamber, and I reach over and hit the charging handle, right? I can hit that charging handle to the rear, hold it open, and I can drop a slug or whatever the chamber and it goes forward, because the loading gate won't activate till I pull the trigger. With a select slug drill with this gun, let's say that I have a buckshot in the chamber right now, right? And I go to open the chamber, right? At that point in time, a shotgun shell will have dropped onto the loading gate, right? So oftentimes what I will do is I may take the gun itself, right? And I may load one in there, right? So if there was a buckshot in the chamber right now, and I wanted a slug, right? In this case, with this gun, I probably would set up with the shell down, but I'll grab the one on the top. I would grab that slug, I would load it into the tube, and then I would pump the shotgun. So now I've lost a buckshot, and I've inserted the slug, right? For me, that load it, pump it sequence is probably the fastest way to select a slug versus to do a bunch of manipulation where we're, dumping and then loading the shotgun shell or whatever else. But I tell you, the predominant reason to do that select slug is there's a target at such distance that it requires that shot. So there's time for you to see and recognize, man, that guy is 85, 90 yards away. It's not as important to do at speed as, for example, right, the emergency reload is, where when I get the click, I realize, oh my gosh, the shotgun is empty. I've got to load it, right? Oops, and get it back in the fight to fire that next shot, right? So the speed is less important because we have the time to recognize that we require a slug versus a buckshot. One of the other things, grab my dumped shotgun shell here, is you got to ask yourself, what are the chances for me, and everybody's different, right? Eric is probably different than myself. What are the chances that I'm going to select a slug and engage a threat on my property that's 75 or 80 yards away? For me, it's less likely, right? If that's far away, almost off my property, I'll probably go into self-defense type position and call the police or whatever else. Now, if I lived in Montana and I realize there's a grizzly bear on my property, or there's someone that's down in the wood lines and I believe he's armed with a rifle and he should not be on my property, and this is a guy that we've had problems with in the past, well, then I have the time to select that slug. And once again, in that case, I would grab that slug out of the carrier, wherever you carry it, right? Maybe you carry it in a different location. I would insert it in the tube and I would pump the shotgun. I know I'm probably going to lose one. If you have plenty of time, when you pump the shotgun, you can, of course, save the round by popping it, and then you can put that buckshot back in the carrier if you want to. For me, I would load it, pump it, versus do a bunch of manual of arms manipulation. Okay. But remember, what the loading gates do and the manual of arms is slightly different on every shotgun out there. But we used to talk about that a lot back in the day, because we all had patrol shotguns. And when I started teaching the processes, I felt that we overcomplicated some of the select slug or select ammo type drills. Okay. Hey, Cody Curlow's on. Good morning. All right. Jim says shotgun first stop. I don't know. Maybe Southern California. I'm not sure. At least in Southern California, I think I can have these shotguns versus a rifle now, which I'd have to have a bullet button and all kinds of stuff on this stuff on. Okay. Let's see what else I have as far as questions. Brett says Mossberg 940 Pro Tactical with Holosun 4K comes with a cutout, so Holosun will co-witness with the iron sights. I love that. Also has a feature, turns on automatically when you grab it. Yes, I think, most of the Holosuns and most of the shotguns out there, or excuse me, the optics out there have a shake awake function. So whether, it's the handgun in my safe right there or your shotgun or whatever else, if shake awake is on, that shake awake will turn the gun on anytime it moves. By the way, the only downside to shake awake, interestingly enough, I had a gun with a Holosun rifle AR in my vehicle for the longest time. And of course, every time the truck moves, the gun moves, it's going to shake that optic awake. So the battery power, especially in colder temperatures, runs down a lot faster. So I've kind of played with other options, maybe an aim point on, leave it on, or a Holosun on manual setting. When I grab that rifle out of the truck, I hit the button on the actual optic itself. But that's a totally different discussion. Okay. John asked about, what do you think about the bird shed handle? I think the bird shed handle is more of a pistol grip thing or something like that. John, if you're asking that, I believe you showed that on video one time. I'm gonna, full disclosure, I'm not a big fan of shotguns with pistol grip only, or some of the modified pistol grip type setups, right? Where you're going to just take the shotgun out there and fire away. This is a high recoiling system. So if you're using this for self-defense, I would like a stock, just like I want on my ARs, so I could center it up. I could drive it into my shoulder. I could drop, drive, pull, press. I can go through that same process of controlling the shotgun than I do with my AR type system. So I'm not a fan of anything that's any different than that. John, if it's a different stock that I'm aware of, please send that to me or bring that up on the Q&A on Thursday. Okay. Let's see what else I have here. PJ says no pistol grip and adjustable stock together in California. That's okay. It's PJ, if I did it, I could still teach with a bad boy like this, right? So I don't mind that at all. I'm okay with the no pistol grip. I do prefer the pistol grip. I prefer it, but there are pros and cons like we talked about in the beginning of this live stream. Okay. Benelli versus Beretta. I wish I could answer that question, John. I only have experience with the Mossberg's Remingtons as far as the pumps, and I own 2 Benelli shotguns. I own the M2 for 3 gunning and the M4. And I can tell you the M4 has been ridiculously reliable if I have good ammo in it, meaning good full power combat type shotgun loads versus lighter stuff that you might use for clay pigeon shooting or whatever else. It is ridiculously reliable for a pump or for a semi-automatic shotgun. I do not own the other one. I don't own a Beretta. I heard lots of good things about them. I would love to run one, but I don't own one, so I can't comment on that. I'll get a little bit later. Okay. Steve Harvey, good question. No, we didn't talk about cruiser ready. Let's talk about cruiser storage ready real quick. So the question is, how should you carry your shotgun? How should your shotgun be set up? And the way I was trained back in the day in the police department, we had our shotguns set up with what we called cruiser ready, right? So cruiser ready would be as follows, right? Gun is empty and unloaded. Okay, the pump goes forward, right? Trigger gets depressed. So now the pump is inactivated, meaning if I pump it, it will pump, right? And then we would take our shotgun shells and we would load up in the tube. So the way that the cruiser ready setup is for the shotgun is you would have your 6 or 8 or whatever shotgun shells in the tube. But when you grab the shotgun out of the back of your car, you pump it, and then you get ready to rock and roll. Of course, the safety would be on because the safety doesn't prevent the pump from being pumped. But the bottom line was you could grab the shotgun and pump it, disengage the safety, and fire it. Now, once again, when I started teaching, I really started to ask, well, why do we do that? Why do we have a round in the chamber in our handgun system? Why do we have a round in the chamber in our AR system, but we don't have a round in the chamber in a shotgun, right? And the only thing I could find, and I haven't done all of the research, so those of you that are true shotgun aficionados that know all of the models, which I don't, was that the firing pin of the shotgun oftentimes is a free-floating firing pin, and we didn't have the same firing pin blocks that we would with an AR system or a handgun, right? So having a round in the chamber was inherently dangerous. Now that said, I believe my choice, I'd probably do a little bit of research if I used a shotgun for a home defense tool, would be to have the shotgun in a manner where the tube is loaded and I've pumped one in. So I've got one in the chamber and the gun is on safe, right? So it's a loaded chamber, loaded tube, gun on safe. Matter of fact, I'm pretty certain that's the way that the Marines or some of the guys would carry those Benelli M4s, right? That the chamber's loaded, safety's on, right? So when you go to fire the gun, right, from whatever position you're moving from, you simply take the safety off and then you fire the gun, right? You don't have to pump the shotgun, right? And I like I said, some of you older school coppers that are on right now might give me some more feedback on that. But back in the day, that was the reason we were given, is that we didn't want to have a round in the chamber because there was a free floating firing pin and it just wasn't a safe or good way to carry a shotgun or have a shotgun in a patrol car, maybe that we were going to get into a wreck in or whatever else, as well as a home defense shotgun. For me, if this is in a secure location, in a muzzle safe direction, in a gun safe that you're going to use to get quick access, I would do additional research to verify this once again, but I believe I would carry it safe ready, cruiser ready, home defense ready, call it whatever you want, with a round in the chamber and a loaded tube and the gun on safe. Okay. Hopefully that is a sufficient answer. Okay. Let's see here. Low profile red dot, perfect co-witness. Beretta 1301 Aridus Chrome and a low profile red dot. Very nice. 13. Man, you guys are talking about these Berettas a lot. I may have to look at the Berettas. Okay. And John, I see you're posting to Google. I will, let me see if I can actually open it. Nope, I better not. I'm not going to open that up. If I open that up, something weird's going to happen. I don't know what's going to happen there. All right, let me hide that. I didn't realize when I clicked on a link, it would actually show that. PJ talks about as long as it's consistent. I completely agree with that. When I started, when I was trained with the shotgun, I was trained in the police academy. We carried a shotgun for protocol in the police car. Later on, I bought the Mossberg 500 that I showed, on this particular live stream, and I started running it a lot. And I carried it pretty much the same way that I was trained in the police department. I carried it what I would call cruiser type ready. Later on, when I started teaching shotgun, I really had to explore and ask myself, ask the question, well, Mike, why are we carrying these things in this condition versus, whatever else? And that's when I kind of came up with the conclusion that, we're probably doing it based on the gear and based on, the processes and the firing pin systems or whatever else that were in play back in the day where, think about the shotguns in patrol cars, right, or homes were often older shotguns. This is back to the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, or whatever else. I can see the reasoning behind this cruiser ready type setup. But like I said, in this case, and I agree with PJ, consistency is the key. Because when you grab it, whether that's your AR in a vehicle that you need to turn the red dot on very quickly because you're trying to save battery life or whatever, you need to grab it and know consistently that it's in the exact condition that you set it up in. So when you grab it, how do you grab it and shoot it? And you should practice that, whatever your condition is. So if it's cruiser ready, where you grab it and you pump it right away and then shoot it, that's fine. But if you grab it and it's ready to rock and roll, I'll get my finger up on that safety and get into a shooting position. Okay. Eric says that's the reason you were given. I'm assuming you're talking about maybe the firing pin that has continued to the rifle and M4s will use as well. So I'm assuming, Eric, you're saying that your cruiser ready might be in a condition where you have to manipulate the bolt or slide or something like that as well. So maybe add more to that if you want to. Okay. Benny, hello to Jason as well. Thank you for watching. I appreciate that, and hopefully work with you as well. Okay. Good. Hammer cock safety on. So that's a good point. Joey, by the way, taught in the law enforcement academy for many, many years. You went to hammer cock safety on, empty chamber. So hammer cock safety on, empty chamber. So, by the way, and Joey mentioned it, but just so you all understand, the deactivation of the pump, the slider, call whatever you want, is in different locations. So, for example, with the Mossberg, it's in a very convenient location down near my finger. So, if I needed to deactivate the pump or move the pump, right? In this case, if I fire the shotgun, right, the pump will work. But once I pump the shotgun, if I haven't fired, I can't do it. So if I'm like, I need to get the pump open for whatever reason to pump the shotgun, I'm going to deactivate this with this device. Right? So in his case, he's saying we're going to have the hammer in a cock position, safety on. So probably when you grab that shotgun out of the cruiser, you have to deactivate that pump it, and then go to the safe position where your finger's on the safety. Now we're ready to rock and roll if we need to. We take the safety off during the mount process, right? Okay, so it makes sense to me. Okay. In this case, if you're going to do it with the Remington version, this sucker is not where my trigger finger is. It's not back here. It's way up here. And it's actually quite a reach. It's a little bit easier maybe if I didn't have the pistol grip. So maybe this is something you should certainly look at if you have a pistol grip. So in this particular case, I would have to grab the shotgun out of the cruiser, deactivate that, pump it, and then go to my safe position where my finger's on that safety. Okay. The manual of arms of the shotgun is super interesting. There's a lot of things going on. But if you choose, it's like, this is my weapon. This shotgun, this is my weapon. I may like if this was mine. You guys remember that, right? Anyways, you just have to work that manual of arms, right? Figure out how to do all these things. It takes a little bit of time. And it's certainly different than an AR. They're from a complexity standpoint, they're probably more complex than an AR type system. All right, folks, I am literally out of time. I went longer than I was supposed to go. I have a family member, beautiful wife that has a birthday today, so I need to go say goodbye to her. And we will do this. We will do this again next week. Hey, Mira, how are you? Doug Willington, check out the Land Tactical 1301. Don't, Doug, I can't buy another shotgun, man. And I love Land. Ernie Langdon sells such awesome stuff. And my mother says she likes having that shotgun. You can have one of these shotguns, Mom. I'll get you one. It's going to knock you around a little bit, though. Hammer slipping off the sear. Aha, got it. Lee, good point. Thank you for the feedback. Free-floating fire pins isn't the issue. It's the hammer slipping off the sear if dropped from the patrol car, hitting a hard bump, or maybe getting wrecked. I love that. Good answer. And that was, it was a variant of that back in the day. So that's why we did what we did with the shotgun. So I don't know if that's the case for some of the newer shotguns. It'd be interesting to find out. Okay. All right, so that's all I have for tonight, folks. This morning. Next week, we will continue on. I'm going to bring these same shotguns back on. We'll do a quick refresher of some of the manual of arms. We'll talk about that. Bring your shotguns, bring your dummy rounds, bring your questions, and we're going to go through the shoot it, pump it, load it sequence and the shoot it, load it sequence for the semi-automatic. I'm going to talk to you about loading positions. We'll talk about the emergency reload with both the semi-auto and the pump. And, of course, do all of your Q&A. We had a freaking great showing today, 130 people on or 120 people live. If you watch us later on or on YouTube or Instagram, if I'm on there with some tips on the Instagram, please do me a favor and give it a share and let people know. Thank you all. Have a great day. This weekend, I think we've got New Year's coming up pretty soon. So I won't talk to you all until 2023. That's very sad for me. I won't talk to you for another year. Just kidding. It's going to be next week. Should be Wednesday morning. Look for the event. Don't forget, put on your calendar right now if you haven't done so. Wednesday morning, 7:30 a.m. live stream. Just set it as a reminder. Just jump on Facebook. On the rarity that I'm traveling, I'm not on. Well, you miss it. But the large majority of the time this coming year, I'll be on. And I will be on in the Livefire studio very soon. So those of you on Livefire, give me a follow. Send me a message on the Livefire app if you're not a member of Livefire. Check it out. It's fantastic. And you all have a fantastic Wednesday and have an incredible New Year. Seriously, I wish you all the best New Year possible. Get your shotguns out. Get your handguns out. Get your rifles out. Come up with some sort of training plan. Figure out how you can practice as much as you can practice with your time and your budget, whether that's dry fire or live fire. But find a way. Find a way to make it happen. And until then, train hard.